The next smart direct we're going to add is for Twitter. It's going to be very similar to the Google smart redirect that we set up earlier. Go ahead and create a new file under utils called twitter.rs. We're going to add 3 functions, which I've pasted here. The first will construct a Twitter URL. The second will construct a Twitter profile URL. And the third will construct a Twitter search URL. For now, they all return hello world, but we will add the logic shortly. Following the same approach as before, I will paste in a few unit tests that I've already prepared ahead of time. That will just make sure that our functions are working as expected. So just to review those real quick, TW should redirect to twitter.com. TW with a space and some words after should search using the Twitter search. TW with the @ symbol should bring it to a Twitter profile. Then we have a few additional tests for the other functions. Same as before our Rust program knows that this module exists, we need to add it here, just like we did with Google. And we can open up the integrated terminal and run cargo test and see all of our tests fail. Let's fix those. We'll start first with the Twitter search URL, since that's very similar to the Google URL function that we made earlier. We'll go ahead and copy these from the google.rs file and paste them above. Next, we'll head back to google.rs and we'll copy this logic because it will be very similar for our Twitter search. Now we need to change a few things. We changed the name of the variable to Twitter search URL and changed the hard-coded string inside the first argument to the format macro. And so that should be good. Opening up the integrated terminal, we can run cargo test and pass -- space the name of the unit test, in this case, test_construct_Twitter_search_URL to run that unit test. And we'll see that it passes, which means that it's working. Moving upwards, the next thing we'll work on is the construct Twitter profile URL. We'll delete what we already have, and then we'll use the format macro again and pass in the profile. So here we're under the assumption that it's being passed in without the @ symbol. And we'll open up the integrated terminal once again, running cargo test, passing the flag to run the unit test for the profile URL. And as you can see, test construct Twitter profile URL passes. Great. 2 done, 1 to go. The first thing we're going to do is remove what we have before. We'll add an if statement checking if the query matches TW. If it does, we'll return a string containing twitter.com. Otherwise, we'll slice the query and see if it matches TW space @ symbol. If it does, we'll call our other function construct Twitter profile URL, referencing the query from the end of the @ symbol all the way to the end of the query. And last, we'll add an else, which is the catch-all where we call the construct Twitter search URL on the string slice of query after the first 3 characters. And we do that because we don't want to include the TW space. And if we open up the terminal and run cargo test, we'll see that all of our tests are now passing. The last thing we need to do here is head back over to main.rs and actually use our new function. So we'll go to the TW branch on our match statement, and we'll call the construct Twitter URL function, passing in a reference to command. So now let's test the TW as is. This should take us to twitter.com, and it does. And now let's try and go into a profile, and that works as expected. And now let's try searching for something. And as we can see, that works as expected. Great. Now we've added a smart redirect for Twitter. This is shaping up nicely.